Hello and welcome to the Car Auto Reviews channel, and welcome to the 2025 Volkswagen Jetta GLI. In today's video, we're going to do a proper technical review under the hood. We're going to take a look underneath it, inside and out, some things we like, some things we do not like, right after this. Let's start our technical review under the hood. Let's get the hood open first. Aha, we have no shocks. Oh. Okay, I'm just gonna stand here just in case, because you could have done this a little bit better. I don't know why this is bent like that. Moving on. The Jetta GLI has one engine option, two transmission options. The engine option in this one is the 2-liter EA888 4-cylinder engine. This is an engine you'll find in a lot larger cars, and here it is in the Jetta. Let's dive into its mechanical construction, because there's a lot of very interesting stuff about this engine, which is actually pretty old, but that's how much engineering went into this engine that's still relevant today. So at the very top, you don't have a plastic valve cover. You actually have an all aluminum valve cover. And the reason for that is the valve cover contains the caps for the cam. So that's why it is aluminum. Underneath that, you do have dual overhead cams. You do have roller rockers, hydraulic lifters, all the good stuff. You do have dual variable valve timing. They are both oil controlled. Now, surprisingly, this engine has a cast iron block. That shows you the age of this engine. It's a cast iron block with main caps that are separate than the upper oil pan. However, the upper oil pan bolts onto it, and there are bolts on the side to kind of strengthen that main cap. That's a pretty cool design. Also, you have on-demand piston cooling jets. That was actually groundbreaking at the time when this engine came out. Still is. Believe it or not, nobody actually thought of that. That's actually a pretty cool idea. I haven't seen it in a lot of engines. Now, this engine does have variable valve lift on the exhaust only. It's a pretty cool thing, but because of that, they had to route the PCV system through the balance shaft. It's a pretty interesting and overcomplicated design, but they had to do it this way. Now, something about this engine does have two timing chains, one for the cams to the crank, pretty simple. The other one is for the two balance shafts. It has two balance shafts and the oil pump indirectly. This engine is turbocharged. It does have a turbocharger in the back. It is an oil-cooled turbocharger with an electronic wastegate and air-to-air intercooler. Now, this engine is direct injected only. So it has 4 direct injectors right on the side of the cylinder head, underneath the intake manifold. The cooling system on this engine is pretty sophisticated. It does have a coolant management valve and whatnot. The only thing that is very, very strange about this engine is the water pump. So here's how they designed this. I suppose they got everything right to this engine except this part. They did one of these deals. Can you touch this side ear? Yeah, absolutely. Why would we do this? Let's do this. That's literally how they did it. So the water pump in this engine isn't belt driven or chain driven like everybody else. No, it is on this side of the engine, underneath the intake manifold, in a place what makes it super complicated to get to, and they decided to make it out of plastic, so it's super common to go on this engine. And then it has a tiny little belt that drives it. Why? That's all I'm going to ask. I mean, I look on this side of the engine, there's so much room. Could have just put a water pump there, or better yet, make an electric one. Save all this complication, but no. That's one of the things about this engine. And then additional stuff, little stuff about this engine. So this engine has timing covers. They has 2 because the cylinder has a little part that covers around the timing chain. Also don't understand why that is, but anyways. The top timing cover is plastic. Flat out plastic with a gasket. Don't have a huge problem with that, although plastic in an engine not a good idea, but hey. You have a aluminum valve cover, but the lower one is steel, not aluminum, not anything. It's steel. Here's the best part. It's such a flimsy piece of steel. Every time it has sealer. Every time you pull it out, it gets deformed, so you have to replace it every time you remove it. Might as well put a plastic one at that point. I mean, if there's a steel one you have to replace every time, and the plastic you got to keep. I don't know what happened there, actually. Let's talk about the transmissions options in the Jetta GLI. So you could have a 6-speed manual transmission, which is really cool to have. They still have it in 25. Or you can have a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. If you're not familiar with a dual clutch it's actually a pretty fascinating design on paper. So you have two manual transmissions. When you're in first gear, second gear is already engaged on another shaft and ready to go. And all we're going to do is just switch shafts that are engaged and we're going. Great on paper. Great for racing applications because it's very rapid, very quick. In the real world, though, you stop in a traffic light is clunky. It is literally wearing itself out every time you're in stop-go traffic. In this particular one, though, Volkswagen has been doing dual clutch for a minute here. It's very refined. You hardly feel that typical judder when you're in stop-go traffic of a dual clutch transmission. So it does work pretty good. But heads up, it's very complicated and it's very fragile. So maintenance is very important. And then there's one more thing that's super impressive about this car, which makes it really drive well. So this has an electronic limited slip differential. Not your typical mechanical limited slip differential. So the computer has complete control about where the power goes and how it's split. And it's watching all the wheel speed sensors, making sure you have full traction at all time. I mean, this system is so sophisticated. It could send power, 100% of the power, to one wheel in the front. That is pretty cool. This car is front-wheel drive, of course. Now, having said that, I would like to share with you some of my observations and some stuff I see underneath here. For the most part, I feel like this is better built overall. But then there are the things. There is a lot of plastic. Almost the entire cooling system is made out of plastic, including the water pump. It's kind of a concern. And then I don't know why this car that is so small needs a massive battery underneath the hood. Could have easily made a smaller battery. That's how they did it. And even though this is not exactly a large engine, they just managed to make it a little bit complicated. Now, when I mean a little bit, I mean a lot more complicated. And then, for example, we look at the air filter. I mean, changing an air filter in the car is the first maintenance you should do on this one. But this one has, let's do the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts holding the air filter on. Half the interior of this car is clipped on and it doesn't have 6 bolts, yet the air filter housing has 6 bolts with 2 super flimsy things attached to the side of it. I don't know why manufacturers do that. Why can't we have just a couple clips and the filter comes out? They just love to do that. My only concern here is the heavy use of plastic. I wish the turbo was in the front. We always say that that's the better spot for it. And then the water pump location and the fact that it's plastic is kind of a concern. I wish it was electric and just put to the side where it's easily accessible. I don't know why they didn't do that. And lastly, don't exactly know what this is about. I just got to mention it one more time. Let's take a look underneath the 2025 Jetta GLI. Everything is covered in the front, but not really here. Everything is wide open here. Let's take a look at the engine here with a very plastic oil pan. I just love how they curve this down, so when you run over something, it just gets picked up by it. That's kind of not the best idea. And another not a great idea, if you come around, Jose, show them this. This is a drain plug. It's a one-time use drain plug. Every time you do an oil change, we got to replace it. And not only that, you have possibly the worst place for a computer with a very innocent-looking connector. This is the computer that controls the limited slip differential, the ELSD that we talked about. Pretty cool how it works. It works really good, but I just wish that this computer would have maybe be put at the top or somewhere else. That would be nice. Not here. It's ready to be pulled off and broken, but that's how they did it. Now let's take a look at the front suspension here. Massive brakes. So the brakes on the Jetta GLI are similar to the Golf R from the previous generation. Over 11-inch rotor here, single piston caliper. It's pretty massive caliper, even being a single piston caliper. Knuckle is aluminum, lower control arm is steel. Separate ball joint, which is really the nice style that we like for service. McPherson strut at the top that does, it's this type that kind of presses into the knuckle. Not the favorite type in the world, but that's how they do it. Now, this suspension on this car is adaptive and it works so well. Talk about it in a little bit, but this is the actuator that actually actuates it. This really works very, very well. This is a DSG transmission, 7-speed, pretty standard. Volkswagen transmission, very smooth, works pretty good. Just the long-term reliability is, again, in a car like this, that can be taken both ways. Exhaust, pretty decent quality exhaust for the most part. The rest of the car, this way and this way, is covered. Not all the way, it just comes to here. This section is open, but I like the shape of this resonator or muffler here. Pretty interesting shape to fit it in this tunnel. Fuel tank is right here. I like how the, actually I don't like this part. The fuel lines are just kind of sitting here. I wish there was another cover here to cover them. Would have been nice. Moving on from that, rear suspension, multi-arm suspension, trailing arm, control arm, another control arm, aluminum knuckle, single piston caliper in the back. Also over 10 inches rotor in the back, which is a pretty decent size. You do have the shock separate from the spring, very, very small spring. And if you come around, here's that actuator for the adaptive suspension. Pretty cool. Now, this does have dual tips, and in this, when you put it in sport mode, the sound increases. I'm not seeing any valve that activates. So it's actually not exhaust that make that sound, it's the intake that makes the sound louder or lesser. Now, the area here is wide open, as usual. Same thing on this side, wide open. I wish manufacturers would cover this area a little bit better. This area is also open. However, I really like this thick covering here. There's a layer of covering here. I really like that they put it here. Let's take a look at the outside of the 25 Jetta GLI. And for 25, we have some visual updates. Updated headlights, a little bit of the fascia have changed, and they did have a front bar light on the higher trim, so this is all lit, goes across. This does have a very sophisticated Volkswagen look. I don't know how to describe it. It just looks, actually it looks really good. I mean, I usually don't like strange red accents like that, but this one kind of looks the part. I really like that. The only thing is there is an excessive, a little bit excessive badging for the GLI, and I like that they called it a GLI, not a GTI. It's kind of giving it its own thing. This is an iconic place where they usually have put this for their hotter models, so I'm good with that. But then there's some on the side and on the other side and then in the back. We'll look at it in a moment. But I feel like what makes this car look good is that Volkswagen have specific design cues. The hood is a bit much. There's a lot of lines kind of run across it. If this were all not there, would it be the same? But I feel like this line that starts from here goes all the way across and kind of folds into the C-pillar, and this line that starts here just gives it a unique look, kind of gives it an angular look, which I really like, because the rest of it, there isn't much going on. There's one crease at the bottom, and that's it. Classy look, typical Volkswagen design. I really like it. Like the wheels, red calipers, of course, to match the GLI logo, which, in case you forgot, there is another GLI logo right here. Looks completely out of place, by the way. As we make our way back here, the fuel door. That's all I'm going to say. All manufacturers are doing this. We could be a little better on the quality of the fuel doors. That's all I'll say. We look at the back here. Also got a little bit of a update for the lights. It's a bar tail light with another GLI. And this one is right in the middle. It's kind of off. But I like that there's no other badging. It's just nothing. It's just GLI. That's all you need to know. Now, if this GLI was placed smaller in here, we would be okay, but middle it is. Let's look at the trunk here, which is very interesting. This is not a power trunk, but look how it opens. I like that it comes up. Some trunks you open, you have to push them up and get them up. This one actually goes up. If you pull it down, it'll come back up. And the reason for that is If you look right in that area, you see that heavy spring right in the corner right there. You see that heavy spring? That's what's making this trunk open like this, which is pretty cool. Pretty decent sized trunks, pretty deep, not as wide, but that's what you expect in a car in this segment. However, underneath here, look at that, we have a spare tire. That's pretty cool, with the subwoofer kind of built into the spare tire cavity. A lot of manufacturers doing this, which is pretty cool. Overall, I gotta say one thing about this car. It's a looker, especially in this color. I really like the outside of this car. Let's talk about the interior of the Volkswagen Jetta GLI. I really like this interior because it has everything you need. No gimmicks, no nonsense, just one tiny gimmick. That's about it. And what I love about it the most is, even though it doesn't have any exotic materials or some crazy design and whatnot, it just feels solid. I really like the build quality. The fit and finish is very good here. And the other thing is, it lacks the typical gimmicks and nonsense stuff you expect from a car like this. Except one. Let's get it out of the way so we can move on with the good stuff. It does have ambient lighting in the higher trims, which you can change the colors and all this good stuff, or you can shut them off. Moving on. Steering wheel is very nice. I do like the shape that has an almost flat bottom. I do not exactly like the touch capacitive stuff. That's Volkswagen's doing that in all their cars. All the buttons here are touch capacitive. Once you get used to them, they're okay, or they're kind of unnecessary. The gauge is not a giant screen. It's a screen. It does display nothing special than two gauges and a little screen in the middle would do, but it is a screen nonetheless. You do have two gauges on the edges here. The infotainment system is updated for 2025. It is pretty responsive, works pretty well. Does have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. Does work pretty good. I have no concerns there. The only thing is, I wish they had a shortcut for a home. It doesn't really have that, so you only can go through the menus. And then the HVAC controls, they are the dedicated control panel for the HVAC, but they're all touch capacitive. Does take a minute to get used to, and they always get dirty very easy, but hey, at least they are always there, not in the screen. Proper physical shifter, which I really love. Even though this is a performance model, you do have plenty of blank switches here. Just to remind you that this is a gimmickless car, so I can work with that. But possibly the best thing about this interior is how it feels when you drive this car. So usually, like hot models of a car, they are designed to do one thing. They are designed to take the normal, sensible car and make it a performance model. And byproduct of that usually is they are super stiff and they will jar your skull. Not this one though. The suspension in this is so refined. It gives it a dual personality that I really love. If you put it in normal mode, comfort, but it even has a comfort mode in a GLI. You get in comfort mode, it's a normal car. It's smooth. It's not gonna put you to sleep, but it is smooth. It's not jarring. It's pretty pleasant to drive, not loud, and it's just a normal car. You put it in sport mode, it gets so stiff and it handles so well. It is amazing how it switches between the two modes. Usually, adaptive suspension is not a radical change like that. This one is, and it's truly impressive. But even in comfort mode, this car handles very nice. It's very fun to drive on a daily basis, and it doesn't jar your skull. And the best part is, usually cars like this, you just have sport mode, normal, comfort, whatnot. This one has custom, and you can customize everything. I want the engine to be loud, transmission to be comfortable, suspension to be comfortable, and the steering to be comfortable. That's a lot of customizations for a car that is not some exotic race car with a license plate. You can really customize a lot. That is pretty cool. Now the seats, for the most part, are pretty comfortable. I do have one concern with the seat. This area of the seat is pretty high, and you cannot really raise or lower it. So you get in this seat, it's not uncomfortable, but it takes you a minute to really get used to this being so high. That's the only observation that I have on this seat. Let's talk about the back seat of the Jetta GLI, which is actually a very important place in a car like this, because this is the car enthusiast, family man, woman car. I'm 5'7", this is my driving position. It's not the biggest space in the world, it's not the most comfortable place in the world, but it's functional. I'll put it this way. However, I feel like this is where they kind of ran out of budget a little bit, because you have not much here going on. You do have some lights. I wish we would remove this light, gave us other stuff, but you have no vents here. You have no USB-C, no charger of any kind here. And then the very nice graphic you have on the door panel on the front here, you have just a piece of plastic. You got rid of that. You only have a storage thing in the back of the seat on the passenger seat, but in the driver's seat, nothing. So there is that. Let's talk about some things I do not like about the Jetta GLI. Now I gotta say one thing, I am very impressed by this car. So some of the things I'm gonna talk about here, a little bit of nitpicks, but hey, we gotta mention them. The front seat's comfort, for the most part, the seat's comfortable, but initially when you get in it, I feel like the area where your thighs are at the end, it's kind of, you can't bring that down. And it takes you a minute to get comfortable in the seat, but once you kind of get used to it, it's not bad. The second thing is the exhaust sound. Now this is a performance car. This is an enthusiast car, you know, the hot Halo model. For lack of a better word, the exhaust sounds like, when you put it in sport mode, sounds like there is an exhaust leak. Doesn't sound very good. Doesn't do a good job at bringing your inner 9-year-old and make them very happy. That's the small thing. The other thing is the reliability. Gotta talk about that. This engine has been around for a very long time. Initial versions of this engine did have oil consumption issues. Now they are, I hope, fixed in this late third generation of this engine. However, maintenance is key from day one. That's gonna be what makes it or breaks it. The transmission, DSG, works great. Very befitting of a car like this. However, it is super complicated and it is on the fragile side. So these are some considerations you want to think about for the long term. And then this one, last one, is a super nitpick, but when you have the car running and you open the door, it just starts beeping so loud to tell you, hey, the engine is running. I can hear the engine running. You don't have to yell at me. Just unnecessary loud beeping. So the Volkswagen Jetta GLI in 2025. I am truly impressed by this car. I have to say that. This is a really well-engineered car to be that perfect enthusiast / family man car, because it has the blend of the two personalities and very well. It does it so well, because on the one hand, it is a sensible 4-door sedan that has no gimmicks, no nonsense. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it's not jarring, it drives pretty nice. But at a flip of a switch, it turns into a pretty serious performance car. Not gonna win any top races, but it's gonna put a giant smile on your face. And that's what it's meant to do. And it does all that in a way that when you get into the interior, it just has no gimmicks, no nonsense, no extra stuff that does absolutely nothing. Seats are comfortable for the most part. The ride is very refined and everything just works. It's not perfect, but nothing ever is. But I think it does the two worlds very well. And it just has a feeling of the inside, even though it doesn't have any exotic materials or jaw-dropping stuff, but it just feels solid. It's well built. Fit finish is really good in this car. And that I really appreciate. But with that, nothing is perfect. And there are primarily two things about this car. One of them is a small nitpick. One of them could be something to consider. The exhaust sound, you put it in sport mode, or the tone of the engine. It doesn't do a very good job at bringing your inner 9-year-old and make him very happy. That's the only problem. I feel like they could have made this exhaust a little bit better sounding, because for the most part, for lack of a better word, it sounds like a giant exhaust leak. That's how it sounds like. But it has decent performance to make up for that. But the second thing is the long-term reliability, because that's one thing important for the car enthusiast family man or woman. This engine has been around for a very long time. In its initial iterations, it had a lot of problems with oil consumption. Surprising for an iron block, but they said that they fixed a lot of these issues, and then the transmission being a DSG, even though it's a good DSG and it's kind of befitting of a car of this stature, but it is on the complicated and fragile side. So one thing I'll say, if you decide to buy one of these cars, maintenance is key. You gotta take care of these cars and don't expect it to need nothing after 15 years. So I'll leave you at that. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.